Hi, my name's Blake. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a social science major. My subfields are in psychology, sociology, and anthropology. This is my last semester before I graduate and move on into a master's program. I'm working towards my LCSW to become a therapist, specifically a psychedelic assisted therapist. But currently, I work as an addictions counselor and I have been in school for 7 years. So I'm really ready to be done and move on in my journey. Um, so I kind of cheated for my image or object because there's absolutely no possible way I was ever going to be able to sum myself up in with one thing. So I think that kind of also speaks to this week's module material, touching on intersectionality, because I don't believe any one person is just one thing. Life isn't that black and white. We have so many intersections of personality, so many different aspects that make us up, moods, emotions, style, likes, interests, hobbies all change. So, on one day we could all be one version of ourselves and the next be feeling something different. So, I put together this collage to kind of give you guys a little idea about myself. As you can tell, I'm a very colorful person. I love anything colorful. I'm very warm, vibrant, empathetic, friendly. I love my friends and my family. I love art. I love creativity, expression, culture, architecture. So, just to give you a brief rundown, that's my husband and I in the corner. Those are our aura photos from a couple years ago. Um, then we've got a little Gustav Klimt AI mermaid because why not? So cute. Ganesha, I'm Indian, so it's part of my cultural heritage. Then I've got a couple of buildings from my favorite architects, Antoni Gaudi and Javier Senosian from Mexico City and Barcelona. Two of my paintings, an ocean because gotta love the ocean as a San Diegan. And then lastly, a picture of me and my friends at an Iron Maiden concert. So that's a little bit about myself. Um, yeah. So for the part two this week, um, and relating it back to module material, I guess I'm going to give a little bit more about myself. So I could really relate to the module material because of my own personal experience growing up in school. I actually had a really tumultuous home life, and um, I developed an addiction early in my teens and ended up in treatment. And because I sought out treatment, I was kicked out of my middle class high school. So I think that kind of spoke to me in the reading this week regarding Apple's article on the hegemonic systems that exist within schools. It also touched a little bit on Anion's research study that she did within the different class levels of the schools. Um, so firstly, when I was going through my addiction in school as a teenager, there was plenty of times where, I know for myself as an addiction counselor, like we're mandated reporters. I believe it's the same for teachers. So you could have seen at any point, like, oh, this student is falling behind. Um, she doesn't really interact with the other students. She's clearly intoxicated under the influence during class. Like maybe you inquire as to what's going on. No, nothing like that ever happened. And then when it did finally come to fruition, I sought out help. And then I was actually kicked out of school and then sent to a lower class secondary school, which Anion would refer to as a working class school. And it was very apparent um, reading her article, the differences that I experienced, because I don't think I could have ever articulated them that well until reading her article. So it was very interesting for me to hear those stark levels in difference of education and preparedness, behaviors, ways of thinking that are, the standard based on your class level. So when I was at the middle class school, there was definitely, I was predominantly white school. So we were being taught a little bit more like I forget the name that she used, the white collar, the middle class schools. Um, I was being taught more to engage and know how to find the answers, like she says. But then when I got to the secondary school, it was a lot more just like, here, you're going to do this task. Make sure you can write this down. Like very little cognitive ability used. And then even through that experience, I continued to struggle. Eventually having like parent teacher conferences with my parents and my teacher, and the teacher in not so kind words told my parents that I was unintelligent and not really going to amount to anything in life. And these developed in self schemas that made me believe that I was unintelligent and I wasn't going to make it anywhere in life. So then um, that ties back to the symbolic interactionism theory. Um, because those things aren't true, but those little interactions, those daily things, especially in an educational setting where there's, reward systems like grades, you're internalizing. Am I doing well? Am I not doing well? And when somebody in a power position tells you you're unintelligent, you're gonna internalize that and believe it. So, yeah, I got a lot out of the readings this week, and it's nice to meet you all.